If your competitors are out there beating the bushes and they're going to figure this out, if you're not in there and at least competing with them, then you've lost by default. Welcome to Emphasis Tech Talks, the podcast for business leaders navigating technical challenges to find a competitive advantage to elevate your bottom line. So today's guest is Christopher Becker with Invent Analytics. He's a growth marketer manager. So Chris, we appreciate you getting on with us today. I know we're going to learn a lot about you and Invent Analytics and the growth marketing space.
Yeah, thanks for having me, David. Happy to be here.
Wow. So Chris, tell us, so what does a growth marketer do?
I don't know if I speak for every growth marketer out there, but I consider a growth marketer to kind of be responsible for, obviously growing the business, being responsible for every, stage in the funnel of acquiring new customers, nurturing them along their sales journey, ideally getting them to convert and become a customer, and continuing that relationship afterwards, and especially focusing on the very beginning, like how do we get people into our funnel to begin with. But really, I consider it a jack of all trades, especially in more of the smaller startups out there.
Wow. All right. So that sounds that's important. If we don't have sales, businesses aren't going to survive. So, part of that is personalization. Is that right?
Yeah, that plays a big part.
So how does that help drive the growth?
For me, personalization has always been something I've tried to bring into any role that I've had, starting back in high school and college when I worked in hospitality industry. I haven't worked in that field in quite a while, but I found that there are elements from my earlier days that I can use to really enhance my position. One of those being personalization. For me, if I want to know David and what's important to you, then it needs to also be important to me. And with our customers, wherever I am, I need to know what their pain points are, what their struggles are, what they look for in whether it's the type of content they receive or the information they're requesting. I want to make sure it's really resonating with them. Mm-hmm. And so it's important to really kind of put yourself in the mindset of the end user and what they're going to find that really kind of sparks their interest. And so if I'm not interested in that, then it's going to be hard for me to make that relevant for them.
And so how does that work the same for both startups and larger corporations, or is there a different thought process depending on the size business that you're working with?
I think it's a pretty universal concept. With a startup, probably even more important because you're really wanting to maximize every opportunity that comes your way. And so you don't have the luxury of, something like a larger corporation that just has this giant funnel that they can work their way through. So whereas one company that's a lot bigger might have hundreds of opportunities, a startup maybe dealing with, a handful at a time. So you really have to make sure you're putting your best foot forward and just making it really relevant for them and making an impact.
Right. So tell me, how does Invent Analytics use AI to improve supply chain management?
Yeah, that's a really loaded question, but I'll try and narrow it down. So at Invent, we use AI to be a lot more forward-thinking. The supply chain and inventory management industry historically has relied on, a lot of manual processes. They, surprisingly, even some of the world's largest retailers, they manage their millions and billions of dollars of retail or inventory with Excel spreadsheets. And
oh yeah, no doubt.
And, when you're doing that and a human's doing it, they're going to let their gut instinct and their biases kind of come into play. And where they might think it's a bad decision to do one thing, AI would probably consider the complete opposite to be the best course of action. And so Invent's solutions really take that human element out of it. It's all automated. We can, for retailers that have thousands and thousands of different products, we can figure out for each of those products where it's going to sell the most in every single location, the fastest, and the most profitably.
Well, I got to think that's super important to retail, especially with the recent issues with supply chain and the changing of the customer dynamics, right? Since the COVID thing and the patterns, those customer patterns that so many retailers were used to being able to just make on the fly decisions about. If they've got 30 years experience in retail, they probably used to know really well how the customer was going to act and interact. But now I think a lot of that's off the table now. And if you're in retail and still trying to drive your business based on your seat of the pants or your experience, that's going to be problematic going forward. So again, another reason why we do this podcast, so that our listeners will be able to learn about these things and how to improve on what you're doing. Today, if you don't have the data and you're not able to leverage this kind of technology, I think you're not going to last very long.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the problem is a lot of these companies, retailers, they do have the data. It's just honestly humanly not possible for them to be able to analyze it and make these thousands and thousands of decisions, in a split second, like AI can. So, I like to think, those seasoned veterans, that was then, but this is now. And like most things in the world right now, AI is just really coming to the forefront.
So where do you see Invent Analytics, within the tech industry, especially thinking of, going forward? So what's the future of Invent Analytics as it relates to the tech industry?
Yeah, I think Invent is only going to keep growing and really securing its footprint in the AI inventory industry. We're backed by a really impressive team of developers and product team, and our CEO. He taught at Duke. He's Wharton PhD. He's just such an intelligent man. So I think we've got the right people in place, and we've built a really solid team over the last couple of years to expand. We've got about 10 years of experience behind us, and with the way that AI and our solutions just keep growing by the day and by the week, there's really no telling. And once we get some really behemoth retailers that we're currently talking to, when we land those, I mean, it's really going to open up the floodgates, I think, for us. And people are going to see, well, if they're doing it, then surely I can get in on that.
Yeah, I would think so. Thinking along that line, what do you perceive as the biggest challenges facing companies like yours, those that are in this growth marketing kind of field?
I think there's a fear from retailers out there based on a few different factors. One of those is, layoffs have been pretty prominent in the tech industry. I mean, in general, all around the world. But people get scared of the thought of, a machine doing their job for them. So there's that sense of like job security that could be going away. And we get pushback when people realize, there's going to be less people filling these roles. But that's not necessarily always the case. You can maybe utilize those people for other jobs and projects. I think, there's in retail, it's just constantly evolving, and, you're planning for the next season before the current season even starts. So trying to get people to really commit to taking on such a task like implementing a new software, that's something we hear fairly often. Like, our IT department doesn't have the bandwidth right now. Let's wait till next year or next quarter. And by then, I mean, the technology is only going to have advanced and evolved even further. So they're going to be honestly kind of even further behind.
Well, and the customers are their competition is going to be advanced further too, right?
Yeah, and we can show them what it would mean within a few months or even a year of implementing our software, the savings, the increased sales and profitability they would have. So, and my CEO, he was actually on a recent podcast where he mentioned for retailers who don't take advantage of a solution like Invent Analytics, let's pretend it's a $10 billion retailer. Every percentage point of margin increase for them, that equates to $100 million a year. So you're looking at about $8 to $10 million a month that they're actually missing out on.
Wow.
And I mean, who can really afford to, just leave that on the table?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Leaving a lot on the table with that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when you're talking with the customer, what's kind of the key points about how that company can leverage data-driven insights with your help?
It's just getting this really granular view into the data, because they've got the data, they just don't know what to do with it. And so, like I mentioned earlier, the way they may have done things, 10, 20 years ago, even 5 years ago, just won't really make that big of an impact now.
Right.
So kind of trusting that the software can not only do the job, but do it better, and, produce these results that they just never even knew were possible. And being able to change their mindset from thinking, my problem is this, but we helped them realize there's all these other problems they hadn't even realized, that are the main sources of their challenges. So kind of refocusing what they think is the issue into what we know it really is.
Yeah, I've been in that meeting. Had several like that. So it's amazing how the data, when used appropriately, can prove or disprove the assumptions that so many businesses are running under. And so I think that's really key, is making sure that you dive into the data in a value-orientated way. It sounds like you guys are doing a great job
I'm trying
doing
to.
that. Yeah, right. So, what are your recommendations when you're sitting down and you're talking to those business leaders? What are your recommendations about how to navigate this competitive landscape, especially in the tech world? I mean, there's so many different organizations coming out. It seems like they're around every corner now. You find a new AI group, and some of them are doing well, and some of them, frankly, are not. But what is your recommendations about how to navigate the landscape?
One of them is not to be too afraid. I mean, change is hard. A lot of people fear that change, but a lot of people are also surprised by the outcome of it, and so not just being too reluctant to do something that you think is it's too hard, or it's going to cost too much money. being open to like taking that leap of faith, I guess.
Right.
And it's not that you're going into it blindly, especially if if you're speaking with a vendor or a software company that you think really has your best interest at heart, and they really understand, your struggles and pain points. And going back to what I said earlier about personalization, like when you can really show them you understand and you have that connection, they're going to be a lot more trusting that you can get them to where you say you will.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And, that's so I often tell our customers that probably the riskiest thing you can do is to not do anything. Right. So if your competitors are out there beating the bushes and they're going to figure this out, if you're not in there and at least competing with them, then you've lost by default. So you have to take steps to move forward, and finding a good team to do that with is very important. So in retail, one of the biggest issues that we've helped some different organizations deal with is inventory. So do you all work with retailers as it relates to inventory? I know you talked earlier about trying to find the products that will sell in a particular location and different times of year and that kind of thing, the seasonality of those products. Talk to me about how you help manage the inventory part of it.
Yeah, so there's a few different components to managing inventory. You've got your regular, distribution of things you're going to have all year round, kind of your staples. And then you've got, your allocation of maybe your seasonal items or what's something that's just a limited time. So those can't be decided using the same factors. And then you've got to also incorporate, well, it's coming up on end of season and I've got all this leftover inventory. What do I do with it? And most people think like, let me just discount it. Well, that's not always the most optimal way to look at that problem, because a lot of retailers discount and they don't have to, or they could send it to another store. They could send it to an outlet that it would sell a lot quicker. Protecting that profitability, there's a lot of our competitors that can do many of the things that we do, but where we really shine is focusing on that profitability aspect. It's easy to figure out how many of these black shoes need to go to my 50 different stores, but knowing which of those stores is going to sell the most and the quickest and where I'm going to be able to make the most profit is something that we're able to help our retailers figure out.
That about inventory and the profitability factor, I think that's really important. Can we take a little deeper dive on that? And what are the challenges? I know you talked about when inventory runs low. What are some of the other challenges that you're seeing your retailers coming up against that you can help them manage those as it relates to inventory?
Yeah, there's a couple. I think probably the biggest one right now is returns. Unfortunately, Amazon's really spoiled us rotten when it comes to being able to return things. And it's so simple to buy 5 shirts on Amazon, knowing you're probably only going to keep one. And so because of COVID and the dynamic changing in the industry with consumer demands, retailers have to keep up with that mentality of, letting my customers return when they want, where they want, however much they want. And so you can do a good job of planning what inventory goes to which location, but then you get thrown this curveball when you've got all these returns that people have shipped to their house, and then they want to return to their local store. So they avoid the return shipping fee if they're going to be charged that. And so retailers want to be flexible and they want to adapt to what the omni-channel customer expects nowadays. And so that just adds another element of complexity to the overall inventory landscape.
Right. And are you finding that your customers are having any challenges with just having good, correct inventory data? I know in the past that's been an issue, and as I as I look at all of these changes, and like now being able to order something online and then go pick it up at the store, um, are you finding that they're having any challenges with that, or how does that look from your perspective?
Yeah, so that's something that we're we're noticing more and more, and we have a solution that helps with what we call phantom inventory, which is you've probably looked on a website and saw that your local store had the product you wanted in stock. So you run over to pick it up, and it even tells you the exact aisle it's on, and you go there and it's empty. And there's a few reasons for that. Maybe uh, it's moved to a different location by an employee who didn't know, or a customer picked it up and put it in the wrong spot, or it's just not displayed correctly. If it's something that comes in a case, it might be sitting in the back room somewhere. Um, and those are easy fixes. We can alert a store, um, look at its sales history for that black shirt and say, you should have sold 10 of these this week. You've only sold one. Like, it shows that you've got them in stock. Like, what's wrong? So the management can go and kind of look at that shelf and see if it's there, and if not, they can find it. But that adds another, layer of um, importance to why managing the inventory matters, because it can affect the customer perception and your
Mm-hmm.
customer satisfaction. Because I know happens all too often. I'll go to a store thinking it's in stock and there's nothing there. And, it's even worse when you ask an employee and they say, well, it says we have 5 of those, and
Right.
no one can locate them. So
Mm-hmm.
aside from the customer satisfaction, you're going to lose that sale because I'm just going to go to the competitor that has it, and they're
Right.
going to get my business.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that can be frustrating for sure. And, everybody can give them grace, on an incident here and there kind of thing. But if that happens too many times in a row, maybe I just go to the competitor first, right?
Mm-hmm.
They become the fallback plan rather than the first choice. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's a big one. And yeah, you can chalk some of that up to shrinkage and other, issues. But at the end of the day, they really have to have that right. I think more so than what it's been in the past, because in the past a lot of it was just around dollars. So, but now it becomes, even as you suggest, a perception issue as much as anything. So
Well, and then that's where we come into play, because we're able to monitor all the stores, locations, um, also take into account distribution centers that might be shipping the products, and
mm-hmm.
figuring out what should go where to each customer, and the best course of action for getting them what they need. So a lot of these retailers work in separate systems that don't really speak to each other, and there's not a holistic view of their inventory. Whereas we can, wherever they've got product, we can figure out the best way to get it to the customers.
Chris, I really want to thank you for jumping on with us today, um, and helping provide all this great information. So tell us, how can we get a hold of you, or how can our audience here, how can they contact you or contact um, Inventive Analytics, and uh, get any more information that?
Yeah, sure. The easiest way is inventanalytics.com. You can email me, christopher.becker@inventanalytics.com. And I think we'll also be able to put up our Invent Analytics LinkedIn. Um, we update that post almost daily, so there's plenty of good information there. But I'm happy to speak with anyone, or put them in touch with the right person if they want to learn more about Invent.
Perfect. Well, folks, feel free to reach out to Chris, follow him on LinkedIn, and be sure and gather as much information as you can from him. He's a real wealth of knowledge here. Appreciate him coming on and helping us out. I'm David Clausen with Emphasis Technologies. Please like, subscribe, comment below, and we'll see you next time.